Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and those who don't identify as either, you are listening to Ratchet and Respectable. We're back. I mean, we were only gone for like an episode. Tuesday was an unexpected departure. If you don't follow me on social media, I did put up an announcement on Tuesday letting people know that there would be no episode. But if you don't follow on social, then you were probably like, where's my episode? Tapping your watch, or where we used to wear watches, wondering where the new episode was. I have signed with a new production house for my podcast. I was with my previous podcaster for 6 years, since 2019. I joined up with them maybe 6 months after I started the podcast, but my contract was up and we had been in negotiations and they weren't going so well. So I had to search out a new podcast home, unexpectedly, to be quite frank with you. Remember when I went to New York a couple weeks ago for On Air Fest? It's the big podcast. Festival is not the right word, conference. I went up there to network and shake hands and meet the people and see who's in the business and who I could take my podcast to. ACAST really rolled out the red carpet for me. I went up to the conference. They heard I was going and they were like, oh, well, we host the Penthouse where we're doing live podcasts. And one of our popular podcasts is Side Hustle Pro. And we would love for you and Side Hustle Pro to have a great conversation and talk about your podcasts and your businesses and your entrepreneurship. That conversation will air on Side Hustle Pro. As soon as I get access, I will share the clips and photos on my social and also direct you to where you can listen to that episode. It's all about the business of being me, which is also a brand. It gets weird. So ACAST took really good care of me and we were able to pretty quickly come to terms that worked for both of us to move forward. So yeah, I'm happy. Hope you can hear it in my voice to be with a new partner. I thank my previous partner for everything that they did. Ratchet and Respectable and the life that I get to lead would not have been possible without the partnership. So I'm very thankful for what they were able to provide. Tuesday was just a kerfluffle. I thought the transition from one place to another would be much more smooth. We just couldn't move fast enough to get what we needed to get the podcast up and running for Tuesday. And to be quite honest, I probably needed a little breather. The last, 6 weeks or so have been a lot of back and forth, very stressful. Like, where is my monies coming from? So we're back, quite literally and figuratively. Thank you for your patience and my apologies for the people who are confused about where Tuesday's episode went. So I've been uploading a bunch of new logos. I'm going to guess if you're listening to this podcast, you had to click on the logo so you see that it's changed from green to red. That's our new official podcast logo. I told you there's going to be a lot of changes coming, right? You heard that on the last episode from last Friday, like a week ago. It wasn't that long. You still remember. One of the changes is the podcast is no longer going to be on Tuesday and Friday. We're only going to do one episode a week. The good news is that you'll get longer episodes. We're still going to cover the same topics. It'll just be one continuous episode as opposed to 2 episodes per week. The new company has their own ideas about best practices and the way to be quite frank, to build my podcast out bigger. I was very frank with them that I want to blow this thing out. Like we cool and cute where we are consistently in the iTunes top 200. I want the number 1 spot, at least to feel like I have a real shot for going for it. So Wednesdays, and I'll just give you a small tidbit of the contract that won't violate any terms and agreements, minimum 50 minutes. So you get plushier episodes. And also, let me be transparent, with plushier episodes do come more ads. I know. I am going to offer an option. I should have it up and running by next Wednesday to listen to the episodes with no ads. It will come with a small cost. Some of y'all have written in, really for years at this point, make an option. I'll pay. I don't want to hear no ads, D. It's not for everyone. Netflix and, is it Hulu? I pay extra to avoid the ads. So I get it. So I'm going to offer an option for that. Also, I think I said this on here, maybe not. The pod is moving to video, not just video, but there will be a video option. I'm building out a studio in one of the other bedrooms in the house. So that is in motion. I don't want to put out a date for that to be up and running, but the room is painted. It's mostly set up. The chair is en route. The chair was very important. Wendy's chair was important. I've been studying podcasts specifically for the chair situation. I know a podcast is not technically a talk show, but the chair matters to me. I wanted this black and white striped one. In my Brooklyn apartment, I had black and white stripes around the whole wall. In my living room, there was an episode of Sex in the City. The girl who falls out the window is doing coke in the bathroom, and the bathroom had striped walls. That's why I painted my living room with striped walls. They were pink and white at one point, and then later I turned them to black and white. And then after I got married, we moved in together and things were falling apart. It felt like bars in a prison. So I painted all the walls silver. There was a lot going on at that time. None of that is the point. The point is, I saw this chair that I really love from Crate and Barrel, and it's got these black and white stripes. It is the most perfect chair I have ever seen in my adult life. The problem is the chair ain't available till May, and I ain't holding up the video component until May for this damn chair. I thought about it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. No. So I ordered another chair. Chairs. We'll see what looks right in the room. We'll decide. I'll send the other ones back. I won't be wasteful. Is that all of the updates? No. That's enough for now. I don't want to overwhelm you. Podcast is moving to once a week on Wednesdays. In my perfect world, I'm going to try to get them up at midnight. But if not midnight, then noon. Definitely noon. No later than noon. Seriously, noon. Moving to video, we don't have a date. And then the option for no ads. Again, I should have that available for you on next week's episode. Okay? Sorry, last thing. There's an official Instagram page for Ratchet and Respectable. It's at Ratchet and Respectable with the and, not the ampersand, the actual spell it out. Ratchet and A-N-D, Respectable. I want to transition the Ratchet and Respectable stuff to its own page so it doesn't overwhelm my personal Instagram. I'm going to make the announcements for Ratchet and Respectable over there first. So anything for a Ratchet and Respectable live, tour dates, or merch drops specifically for Ratchet and Respectable, all that stuff will debut on that site first. And then I'll update my personal brand page. So at Ratchet and Respectable on Instagram, that's a lot. We're going to talk about something else. Like the Oscars. I didn't watch it live. I was on the phone, kikiing, pulled into the driveway and then sat in the car for 2 hours on the phone. When I walked in the house, Mom was watching the Oscars, and then 2 minutes later, Zoe Saldaña won for Best Supporting Actress. And that's caused quite the kerfluffle. I didn't watch the movie. I heard from people that watched it, it wasn't worth it, and I ain't got a lot of free time, so I was like, I'm good. So the movie is set in Mexico, and a reporter of Mexican descent asked Zoe, she was like, y'all made this whole movie in Mexico. Y'all didn't have no Mexican people consult, and Mexico is not pleased with the depiction of Mexico in the movie. And Zoe Saldaña's response was something like, the movie was about the stories of the women. The movie could have been set anywhere. She listed off a couple other places, we just kind of chose Mexico. She kind of implied it was irrelevant to the story. And I was like, I like Zoe because I like Zoe's acting in Lioness. It's 2 seasons of amazing TV. Zoe, you hear me struggling. Zoe, she's a good actress. Full stop. But this is not her first time being publicly problematic. We don't need to get into her full history, but the biggest one is when she played Nina Simone in essentially blackface and a prosthetic nose, and then also tried to sing Nina Simone songs in the film. She got a lot of bad judgment. Great actress. Something should have told her spirit, and it did later, because she apologized for playing Nina Simone. She was a beautiful brown actress, really should have done that. And as a Black woman, I knew better. I specifically say the as a Black woman part because when people talk about her, they're always like, she doesn't even claim she's Black. There could have been a time where she didn't. But for the last few years, she has been a proud Dominican woman who refers to herself as a Black woman. I don't judge her for that. And also don't judge her for the Nina thing, because she eventually did apologize. I mean, she got raked over the coals for years for that shit, but she did eventually apologize, and her apology seemed sincere to me. I like to say there's grace for those that seek it. I did feel like she sought grace, and I did feel like she was, behaving much better. And then also, I loved her in Lioness. But this latest kerfluffle, when people of melanin feel offended that their culture has been shitted on, just, as a fellow melanated person, I relate. So if the Mexicans mad, then, then she was wrong. That's it. This may be another situation where she has to go on and apologize because she done fucked up again. I did go back and watch the Oscars on Hulu. I mean, I fast forwarded through most of it. Did I put notes in my phone? And did. Oh, these are the notes from the sermon. You know, I talk about my pastor sometimes, Howard John Wesley. Why can I never remember the name of this church when I talk about it on here? Alfred Street Baptist Church. I stood in line like it was the club one Sunday morning on Martha's Vineyard. Like, I got there 45 minutes early thinking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna show up for church and I'm gonna get a good seat. And it was like 1,000 people, literally 1,000 Black people in 2 different lines standing outside the church. And I almost didn't get in. I would never ever say, don't you know who I am? That's obnoxious. But I never like be like, oh, you know, I could be someone. I never. But then when I realized I wasn't gonna get in that church, I did it. I did it for God. I did it for God. If you ever going to do it, that's a worthy cause, right? Right. Okay. That's how much I love Howard John Wesley. His sermon from this past Sunday, he was comparing the Pharaoh who had a hard heart to the current administration, and how the Pharaoh just, you know, people were like, Pharaoh, like, you know, all these things are wrong, and the Pharaoh just wouldn't listen. It's a really good sermon. So good that I took notes. The first of my notes is God plus anybody equals you are somebody. Come on. And then also God protects those whom God has called. I'm just saying, get into that sermon. It was a really good sermon. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about, the Oscars, amongst other things. We also have a treat this episode. One of my really, really good friends wrote a really, really good book. I've been reading a lot lately. So we're going to talk with her about her book. I did the edit for the interview this morning. It's really good. If I do say so myself. I mean, I'm biased, obviously, but it's one of my better interviews. What do I have on this Oscar list? Oh, Cynthia Erivo. They noted that this was Cynthia Erivo's 3rd Oscar nod. She is an Oscar away from being an EGOT. Unfortunately, she did not win an Oscar. It is an honor to be nominated. Surely she wanted to win. And they also noted there's another Wicked later this year. Did Wicked go to streaming yet? Because I ain't go to the theater to see it. I'll watch it if it's streaming. Not when it's like $19.99 to rent. Like when it goes down to like $9.99, I'll watch it then. Oh, and then she has an album coming this year. How do you feel about Cynthia Erivo? I told y'all I made peace with it and I was moving on. The girl can sing. Maybe you'll support, maybe you won't. That's fine. Ariana and Cynthia opened the Oscars. Ariana did a song from the original Wizard of Oz. Cynthia sang Stephanie Mills' Home. There were 2 big Stephanie Mills songs. I mean, because Stephanie Mills played Dorothy on Broadway, and Wicked is based. Is based the right word? Because again, I ain't seen it. I ain't seen it on Broadway either. The Wizard of Oz, there's some Wizard of Oz connection going on there. Correct? I think. Don't quote me. But no, Cynthia Erivo did Home, and then Queen Latifah, of all songs to sing, for the Quincy Jones tribute, did Ease on Down the Road. And I was like, who decided this? Like, of all the Quincy Jones songs in all the world, or even the songs from The Wiz, like Queen Latifah would have killed Believe in Yourself. Believe in yourself right from the start. Oddly, I don't know the Lena Horne version. I know the Erykah Badu version. I told y'all I never did make it through The Wiz. My mama don't like it either, so I never watched it as a kid. I tried as an adult. That's nostalgia making y'all like that, just FYI. Y'all love it a lot, and I'm not trying to get cursed out, so I'm just going to move on. But it was just like, y'all had Home, which is a Stephanie Mills song from The Wiz on Broadway. And then y'all also had Ease on Down the Road, which Stephanie Mills sings in The Wiz. And nobody thought that Stephanie Mills should be there. I'm kind of pissed at her right now because she said something. She like retweeted some pastor that was complaining about men wearing tight pants and wearing purses. And I was like, sir, the world is ending. World War III is upon us. China talking about they want that smoke. And the president of France is doing news conferences telling Europe to build up their armies and reminding the world that France has nukes. Like, other countries are about that life. Canada about to turn the lights off in Michigan. Kentucky can't sell no bourbon. Like, it's a mess. And men in tight pants swinging purses is what you want to complain about. That's almost as bad as your girl. I claim her. You know, when I really don't fuck with people, I'd be like, oh, you're so-and-so. I can't claim her. I claim her. Your girl. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett making TikTok videos to Kendrick Lamar songs and dancing through the halls of Longworth. I literally went and looked up where her office building was because I was like, I know you fucking lying. With her doing TikTok videos in the halls of Congress on the day of the presidential address. They said it wasn't a State of the Union. I'm like, it looked like the State of the Union. It sounded like a State of the Union. It wasn't a State of the Union. It wasn't a State of the Union. Your girl doing TikTok videos. I said something about it on Threads just because it's my smallest platform. A lot of folks agreed. A lot of folks disagreed. The folks who didn't agree, it was like, hey, she's trying to reach the young people. I was like, reach the young people and say what? What did that video say? You and two of your staff members doing TikTok videos, bad TikTok videos, up in your official congressional office, at your official congressional desk, and then in the hallways of the building. Like, what exactly did this convey? Because the caption told people that she was headed to the State of the Union and then told other people not to watch. I'm like, so this conveyed what about how to protest or how to resist? This conveyed what about like a bill or a law or work of some kind? People are like, yo, it's tense outside. People need to unwind. They do. They do. Does everything have to be on TikTok? If she wanted to go dance in her office, it's not on TikTok. I don't care. If the Fuhrer is kicked out of the White House and she wants to make TikTok videos up and down the hallways, dance on her desk, twerk on it, I'm fine. I don't care. I'm just saying, like, it's now, especially when there's no, like, you're not fundraising, there's no point of sale, there's no information shared, there's nothing. She's like, oh, she's trying to be engaging. And I was like, engaging people to do what? TikTok videos for the sake of being seen and being funny and entertaining is the domain of influencers, not elected officials. You want to be on TikTok? Fine. I have no issue with that. You want to be entertaining while conveying information? Like, sure, I have no issue with that. I just want to be very clear. Like, I'm critiquing the act. Jasmine Crockett does a lot. She has a great voice. When the reporter asked her, you're like, what do you think of Elon? And if you would say anything to him, what would you say? And she was like, fuck off. I thought that shit was gold. I reposted it on all of my platforms. I celebrated it. I shared it. The B6 thing didn't really do it for me, but she has a voice beyond that. She is outspoken. She is smart. She gets her shit done. That TikTok video was really bad timing. A lot of people lit me up about that publicly. A lot of people also called my phone and was like, somebody needed to say it because what the fuck? I'm just saying. If she got up like her colleague, Congressman Al Green, he might have been one of the oldest persons in the room. Like, the man stood up and pointed his cane at the president and called him out in the middle of the non-State of the Union. And I was like, how the oldest, I was about to speak like Meek Mill, how the oldest person, because to call him the word that I'm redacting would be inappropriate. How one of the oldest people in the room? Like, the man is literally on a cane. That means he got trouble standing and walking. He the realest person in the room? Really? He got censured today, which I was like, what the fuck does that mean? That's like a love tap. He not getting kicked out. They not fucking with his money. So he got censured for what? I'm like, that man will wear that shit like a badge of honor. As he should. I stood up to a tyrant. I stood up to a fascist. I stood up to Nazis. Like, put that on a pen. Go down in history. I thought that was great. Your girl, our girl. Still claiming her. The TikTok video, that wasn't it, sis. This ain't the time for fun, fuckery, and foolishness. Not as an elected official. I do dumb shit, but I'm not elected to lead. You are literally in leadership. People are like, oh, but she's like a junior congresswoman. Like, she's new. And still a leader. Other folks were like, she's young. You don't understand because, like, you're not young. And I was like, she's 43. This is not an ageist, I don't understand, like, what the youth are doing. Like, she's 43. If I'm middle-aged, so is she. Come on. Even if she was young, don't put that on young people. There are tons of people who are in their 20s that got enough sense not to be clowning. Not gonna say the other words. I don't think it's deserving of that. Clowning while we're on the verge of World War III. That's not the point. None of this is the point. We're supposed to be talking about Stephanie Mills, who pissed me off because she's online retweeting somebody who's complaining about menses with purses and tight pants. I don't give a fuck. If you got a nice purse collection, well, let me see what's new. I might want to pick something up. I wanted to get that Coach bag, that coin purse Coach bag. I don't even like big purses. And the day that it was released, or the second time it was released, the re-release, it was either log on and fight the world or get on Zoom with Miss DeVita and hash out the details for this See Some Cape Town trip that happens next month. I did what I was supposed to do. But damn it, I really wanted that bag. And I ain't paying a resale price for it because I was like, look, it's Coach, stop it. But it's a cute ass bag. It's like a giant coin purse. You just stick it right under your arm, which is completely impractical for me. You know, I like a little teeny tiny crossbody bag. Just enough space for a phone, a lip gloss, and a good charger. Is any of this the point? No. Cynthia Erivo sounded amazing singing at the Oscars. Her voice, that's a voice. And she's like 2 bits big. She's like super tiny. She was wearing a wedding dress. It was absolutely gorgeous. I would never wear it, but if I was to do it over again, I'd do it at City Hall because I'm not paying for another wedding. But like San Francisco City Hall, not like any of the New York City Halls. Those were not appealing. But the San Francisco City Hall, that's a venue. I think it's like $500 to get married there. I'm in it for the pictures. I mean, and like, you know, the marriage and the husband, but you know, for the actual wedding, I'm in it for the pictures. What do I have here? Covered all the good stuff. Oh, I want to make sure I pronounce this black man's name right. Paul Tazewell. He won the Academy Awards for Best Costume Design, and he is the first black person to do so, and was proud to tell you such. He is from Akron, Ohio. I got family in Akron. He is 60 years old. And his education was at the North Carolina School of the Arts, and then also Tisch School of the Arts. NYU alum. Go Bobcats. Oh, and he won for Wicked. That's important to say, too. Oh, Zoe Saldaña. She was the other black person that won. Her yelling for her mom, and she's like, Mommy, Mommy. I thought her mama had died, and I was about to lose it. And then her mom was sitting in the audience, and I was like, Ma'am. It was still cute, though. Oh, Doja Cat. I'm going to say this, and people going to be like, D. I didn't know Doja Cat could sing like that. I knew she was a singer. I didn't know she could blow. She did Diamonds Are Forever. There was like a whole James Bond theme. And she did it wearing, I had to write this down because I was like, what exactly is she wearing? 1 million Swarovski crystals. And then the girl who went after her, I had to look her up. She sounded so good. I think she was singing Skyfall. Ray? Is that her name? Oh, she's British. I'm just seeing that now. So Adele originally sang the song, but Adele, you know, she only come out to play like every 4 years or so when she got an album. Then she go away and hang out with whoever she's dating at the time. She's engaged, I think. Did she marry him, Rich Paul? We'll find out for sure in like 4 years. But, you know, Adele only come out every once in a while. So Ray sang Adele's song. She didn't sound like Adele. She sounded amazing. Equally as amazing, I would say. She was very gracious afterward. She's like, you know, no one can do Adele like Adele. No one can do Adele like Adele. But baby, she sang her little face off. She's a pretty girl. What else do I have on here? Oh, Whoopi and Oprah. They did a little chat about Q. They both got their start in The Color Purple, which I totally forgot. I mean, obviously I knew, but I don't know. I just didn't make that connection. Like their film debut was The Color Purple, of which Quincy Jones was obviously a producer. Q, as Oprah kept referring to him, she noted that Quincy Jones had 7 Oscar nominations. And, you know, she also talked about like his 60-year career. And then they introduced Queen Latifah. I understand why people complained about the tribute. I saw the complaints before I actually saw the tribute. And once I saw it and I was like, I love Queen Latifah. Like, love her down. That tribute was ungood. Not because of the singing, not because of her performance in particular. It's just like a weird song. I said this earlier. To like, I don't know, dedicate to Quincy Jones. Like the man had 7 Oscar nominations and surely y'all could have found another song to sing. Maybe not. They played Quincy Jones music like throughout the telecast. Like I did hear little bits of songs that he had produced throughout, but are we getting like a proper Quincy Jones tribute? Remember like Andre Harrell died and we got like was that from BET though? Can we get a Quincy Jones tribute? You could bring out like everybody. It would be an awesome night of TV. But I was like, it's Quincy Jones. Like, he gave us 6 decades of music. He could get a 2-hour tribute. People complained that the tribute at the Oscars was too long. And I was like, for Quincy Jones? We need a proper tribute for Quincy Jones. I would like it. Do you have anything else for the Oscars? Oh, the Vanity Fair party after the Oscars. I guess the big news out of that was Tiana Taylor and Aaron Pierre, that's Mufasa. They have hard launched their relationship. They both posted a black and white photo of them all cuddled up, like clearly a couple photo, or press for an upcoming project, it wouldn't surprise me. A lot of people think it's a PR relationship, and I was like, could be, wouldn't put it past them. Actually, she don't really strike me just disposition wise as the type of person to do that. Like, I interviewed her a couple years ago, but I've known of her for years. Like, she's from New York, and she just be outside until, after I interviewed her and she hated the article. We were like, hugs and cheek kisses when we saw each other, but I don't know if that still applies. But she don't, nothing about her disposition strikes me as like, oh, I'm gonna just do something for attention. It's not like she struggles to get attention. For whatever reason, she struggled with album sales, which I didn't really listen to her music like that at the time. But I've been listening to some stuff now, and I was like, yo, like, I understand why she quit and was like, I'm not getting the love I deserve. Like, I should be a much bigger artist. She should. Maybe she'll come on back. Maybe. She making Hollywood money now. That's better than music money. I don't have experience in music. Swiss Beats told me that years ago. He did the score for Any Given Sunday. I interviewed him for a feature. I don't think it was a cover. That's not the point. None of this is the point. The point is Teyana Taylor, Aaron Pierre, they're very, very beautiful people. If they happy, I'm happy. It's age appropriate. They're both gorgeous. They both doing their thing. I like it. I hope it works. I wish them the best. They're cute. Oh, also, Vanity Fair. It's not so much a Vanity Fair party. I saw the outfit when she wore it and was like, oh, Meg. I love Megan. I love Megan. Niece Meg. We have two nieces on here, Niece Meg and Niece Angel Reese. I like Megan. I don't always agree with everything she wears or everything she says or everything she does, but overall, like, I really enjoy Megan Thee Stallion. She showed up at the Vanity Fair Oscar party, which is the after party to the Oscars, not the Oscars. It's more party than it is, gala. In this dress, it was down to her knees. It was an olive dress, one of my favorite colors, and she had like pasties over her titties. Like, it was like some feathers, like kind of like doing like a camouflage moment. But like, you could see when she turned to the side, you could see like her whole titty, except for the nipple, where she had like the green pasties that matched the dress. See the titty, but no nipple on the titty. Like, it's very Megan. We talked a couple episodes ago about the Grammys and Ye's wife, Bianca. Don't ask me that lady last name. I had to go look it up because I want to just refer to her as Ye's wife. I wanted to actually just courtesy as woman to woman to like actually identify her by name. She showed up to the Grammys and she had on this big fur coat and she takes it off and she has on this completely sheer nude dress that matched her skin like perfectly, to the point that people were like, is she nude? Like, no, she actually has on covering. Like, you can see straight through it. It's not hiding anything, but she actually does have on fabric over her form. She looks so uncomfortable being naked and displaying her body that way. And I was like, no, I don't like it. Like, it didn't, like, if it was some kind of performance art, like, the performance didn't work for me because she looked so uncomfortable. I'm like, if you're going to show up and be ass naked, like, you should show up. Like, Amber Rose used to, like, basically show almost everything. And she would show up, like, proud to be showing it off. We talked about Rihanna and her like sheer dress. Like, she showed up like, bitch, do you see it? I want you to see it. I want you to like it. Like, look at me, look at me, look at me. Like, she reveled. She felt comfortable. Like, this was clearly a decision that she had made for herself. Like, she wanted to show up with like my expression, like titties on the glass. It comes from some Ratchet video I saw in the 90s, probably BET Uncut. But Megan showed up with like, whole titty out. We've seen it before, maybe not two titties at a time. And in comparison to what Bianca showed up on the Grammys carpet when she dropped the fur, Megan was completely covered in comparison. Maybe because I just saw that on the Grammy carpet, or maybe because, like I came up on Little Kim and Diana Ross, like, tapping her titty. I was like, oh, Meg. And that's really all I thought about it. Like, she looked confident. She looked happy. It's very on brand for Megan. Her brand is body positivity and twerking and talking big shit. And she's half dressed all the time. Like, she wanted to make a statement. She wanted to cause conversation. She wanted to be seen. She wanted to be photographed. And she was. I really didn't think twice about it. It's on brand. What more can you say? If Megan showed up dressed like, I don't know, like Michelle Obama in her A-dress era, I'd be like, the fuck? Like, what are you wearing? Why are you all covered up? She's always half naked and shaking her ass. It brings her joy. It brings a lot of people joy to watch her shake it. I don't care. Her mama didn't care. It is what it is. Sherri Shepherd, and I like Sherri. I like Sherri a lot. Sherri Shepherd, and she usually keeps it real cute on the show. And it's one of the things that I've always liked about her show. Sherri Shepherd decided to critique Megan Thee Stallion's outfit. She didn't like it, which, fine, she's entitled to that. I thought she went a little far. And also, I'm reading this article on yahoo.com. Her talking about Meg is what's making the headlines, but she also talked about Zoe Kravitz. She had on a long black gown, and in the back it was sheer, and you could see, not all, but you could see a lot of her lower back and then her butt crack. I'm looking at the dress. It's like sheer with maybe pearls over it, pearls, rhinestones, but you can clearly see like the crack of her ass, like it's there. And then that other girl that used to date Kanye, Julia somebody or another, she had this dress that was like, I guess it's like channeling Venus de Mayo. This dress is awful. It looks like it's a completely sheer dress, and it has like hair, brown white people hair, in strategic areas to cover up what should be private places. The top completely sheer, you can see titties, but the bottom, like over her vaggie, they've added like an excessive amount of like long spiraling hair, and it just looks like pubic hair gone extraordinarily wild, like Rapunzel pubic hair. It's ungood, unfavorable, do not enjoy. But this is what Sherri said about all of the women. She didn't just specifically call Meg out, even though that's the way it's being reported. She said, I say this with all the love that I have. Ladies, this is not it. And I say this because there are young women, young girls who are looking up to all of you. You're going to have these young ladies emulating you. I think if she could just say that, like, that is not it. Sometimes I talk about Lizzo and her twerking. I would follow and unfollow Lizzo because I was like, I really like Lizzo. But I'm like, her twerking all the time. And I'm just like, I just don't need to see your ass every day. Every day, every day. And it's not because it's big ass. It's like, I say the same thing about Megan. Like, I love you. I don't need to see your ass every single day. But when I say that, I also point out, like, it's a lot of ass shaking. I don't want to see it, but I respect their right to do it because it's their ass to do with what they want, I think if Sherri had stopped there, she would have been okay. But then she got into the respectability politics, and she's like, remember when your grandmother would tell you, let them use their imaginations, be a little more mysterious. Nobody gets to use their imagination. And then she specifically spoke about Meg. I think this is a lot of what she's been quoting. She says, Megan, I love you. I do. But I'm so upset because God gave you a legitimate gift. You are amazing with your lyrical rhymes and how smart you are. And then she continued even more. She did like a whole segment. She really went in. She spoke about all of the women who wore revealing dresses. She said, quote, these young girls who are emulating you, they don't have security around them. So they're emulating you and they go to these parties and something tragic could happen. This is when the whole thing goes left. Like, she says, these are our future. These young women and young men. I'll get off my soapbox. I love all of y'all, but Auntie Sherri has spoken. Okay. Remember how we talked about Lori Harvey and Playboy? When I heard about it, my respectability politics flared because I was like, oh no, Lori, no. Like, you have so many opportunities. You come from, this family with a bunch of money. You seem like you were raised in a positive environment. You grew up with privilege and access. She did her society debut at like some Venetian ball. She had a lot of opportunities, a lot going for her. She has a lot of financial backing. Let's just be really clear. So I was like Playboy, like, this is not a route that you had to go. Like, why did you choose this? And then I had to check myself. And I did it on the podcast. And I was like, this is me and my respectability politics, and doing things the quote and unquote right way doesn't guarantee you anything. There's tons of women who've done things the quote and unquote right way and ain't got shit to show for it, but a whole bunch of regrets and suppressed living. I think if you're going to go into respectability politics, you need to at least be aware this is your shit to deal with and not someone else's. Because even in speaking about Lori, like, I'm giving protective auntie, that's not actually my niece, and that's not my kid, and I don't know this woman because literally she doesn't speak in public. Like, we have no idea what her opinions are about anything. Why? That's literally my favorite Lori Harvey quote because that's like the only time I've ever heard her speak. I think there absolutely are young girls that look up to Zoe Kravitz and look up to Meg the Stallion, and for whatever unknown reasons, also look up to that woman whose name I can't remember, Julia, somebody or another. Kanye's like, I think the first woman he dated after his marriage ended, Julia Fox, that's her name. There are girls that look up to them. It is not their job to dress in a certain way or self-filter or tone down or change anything about themselves because there are young girls watching. Would it be nice if they wanted to act and behave like role models? It could be. Is that their job? No, their job is to entertain. And we often like to put these titles on people and like, oh, you're a role model, you're a role model. If you're a teacher, if you're an elected official, if your job is to protect children in some way or society even in some way, I would argue that you do have some obligation to think about your influence on children, especially if you work with children. The job of entertainers is to entertain. Like, some people do want to be a role model. They do want to take on that extra, some would say baggage, some would say burden, some would say responsibility. There are people who want to do that, but the people who don't, like, it's not their job. It would be nice if they did, but they don't want to, and that's fine. The idea that Megan or Zoe, should they alter their appearance for some random kid that they don't know? Why? Where Sherri really did herself a disfavor, and also the audience that she was speaking to, because it's a really terrible point of view to put out there, is like, you wear these dresses and you walk around with security, but these other girls wear these dresses and something could happen to them. It could, but the responsibility isn't on Meg or Zoe or Julia or on the girls wearing the revealing dresses. It's on the people who harm them. We just make this habit culturally of policing how women behave and how women dress, and we put the onus on them kind of not to get themselves harmed, as opposed to addressing the men that if you see a woman and she's dressed in a way that we might call scandalous, or that doesn't give you a right to harm her. Sherri is participating in a really detrimental mindset that blames women for the harm that comes to them instead of placing the blame on the people that have harmed them. If she was really concerned about the safety of women or young girls in these outfits, then maybe the PSA should have been to young men like, hey, like, there are girls out here who will emulate these women and they will wear these dresses, they will be scantily clad, and they may be dancing or behaving in a particular way. But just so you know, you don't have a right to touch them. You don't have a right to harm them. You don't have a right to harass them just because they're dressed that way. Place the onus of not harming on the people who harmed. Don't victim blame, essentially. And that's what Sherri did. Sherri also believes the world is flat. I'm going to move on. Last but certainly not least, this is probably my favorite part of the podcast. I really like doing interviews. I didn't do them for a really long time when I was overseas, just because timing and also internet connection sometimes made it a little difficult. Like, even on my best internet in London, I tried to do one with, I want to say Tia Williams, and the sound didn't come out so good. And y'all reamed me out over it. Y'all talked about me so bad for it. And I was like, yeah, I'm good. I'll wait till I get back home. But our interview today is with Alencia Johnson. She is the author, it's her debut book, of Flip the Tables, the Everyday Disruptors Guide to Finding Courage and Making Change. Disruptors doesn't mean what you think it does. This is not a book about activism, which I thought it was, because, she's an activist, a loud and noisy one. So I definitely thought this book was about that. And then, once I started reading it, and I was like, oh. But I'll let her explain what the book is about. But let me tell you about her first. Alencia Johnson. She was named to Ebony Magazine's Power 100 list of influential African Americans and PR Week's 40 Under 40 list. She is an award-winning social impact strategist with corporate, political, and nonprofit experience. She is the Chief Impact Officer and founder of 1063 West Broad, a social impact agency leading strategy related to social justice and cultural change. Alencia is a highly sought-after cultural commentator and advisor, having advised on the presidential campaigns of Vice President Kamala Harris, still can't believe we ain't elect that lady, President Joe Biden, Senator Elizabeth Warren, and forever POTUS Barack Obama. She is regularly seen on MSNBC, CNN, ABC News, BET, and featured in NPR, Washington Post, Essence, Glamour, and more. She's also one of my very dear friends. Please welcome Alencia Johnson to Ratchet and Respectable. Hello, Alencia.
Hey, Demetria.
I am so excited to have you on Ratchet and Respectable. This is a dream come true.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I love this podcast.
And I love, love, love your book. Like, I remember the process of you talking about it. I remember the process of you writing it. Like, you went away and then you were back, and like, there's a book, and it's so good.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. I literally, yes, went away. It's so many of my friends, like you were reminding me, like this time last year, I was just getting back from Mexico City, where I'd been for a month, where I spent a lot of time writing it. And now it's here. And actually, I didn't share with you before we started recording, but last night I opened my box of my actual like books, the first print.
Oh, it's like it's like a baby. I remember this fondly. It was many, many years ago. It's the best thing on earth.
It is. I literally FaceTime my parents at 12:30 in the morning. I said, "Wake up. I need y'all to
Wake
be in
up.
this
It's an
moment."
emergency. This is important.
It was yeah, it's mind-boggling that this baby is birthed and in the world.
I'm looking at the cover right now. Flip the Tables, the Everyday Disruptor's Guide to Finding Courage and Making Change.
Yeah.
I thought I knew what the book was about because, like, I know you and, like, I heard the word disruptors and I was like, okay, like, she's going to teach us how to, like, lead movements, do big radical change. And then, like, the first part of the book is like, no, 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 you don't go change the world. You start with changing yourself.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people will be surprised about that. The title comes from my favorite story of Jesus in the Bible when he flipped over tables in the temple.
Radical Jesus.
I love radical Jesus. I love that. I love crunk Jesus. I'm not surprised that that was your first thought of what the book was about because I get this question all the time from the work that I do or just people who know me of like, hey, what do I do to change the world or have impact or get engaged politically or whatever it may be? And I appreciate that question. I appreciate being a trusted source for that. But during the pandemic, I had some time, as a lot of us did, were privileged to do so. Had some time after I was no longer on Senator Warren's presidential campaign. Well, that campaign ended, and I was trying to figure out what was next. And on one hand, I believe that all of us, when we are in our purpose, it is to help other people and be in this collective community that advances society. But then I was feeling stuck, Demetria, to be honest. I felt stuck myself as someone who a lot of people can look at and say she's had a lot of public success. I felt like I wasn't really living for myself and that there were dreams I was scared of putting out in the world. There were things holding me back, both personally and professionally. And I said, well, wait, in order to have impact in the world, I got to get in my purpose bag and my courageous purpose bag and work through some things. And if I think about Jesus flipping over those tables, we all have proverbial tables in our lives and we constantly look outward and the tables around us, but we never really look at the tables within ourselves. And I also, having what Senator Warren's campaign was, what, my third, fourth presidential campaign, I worked at Planned Parenthood. I've been in these advocacy spaces where so many people I've worked with, we had done like kind of harm to one another, right? We're doing all this good for the world, trying to advance society, but because we're not paying attention to ourselves or healing ourselves and not doing the things that we need to do to be healthy people and work through our challenges, we actually are kind of inflicting harm on one another. And I said, well, wait, I don't want that to be my story. I also don't want to burn out as a Black woman can easily do. And we do because of so many issues. And so I had to really disrupt myself and stop running from myself because we love to run from ourselves, especially Black women. We like to go achieve more instead of really sitting with ourselves. And so that is why I start with disruption of self, because in order for us to show up and do the most good in the world, we've actually got to start with ourselves. And that can be the hardest thing. But then once you are in yo, I'm accepting my full self bag and like have worked through some things. When I talk about some courage, that is some real courage. It has liberated me and gotten me to a place personally that I'm so proud of. And also professionally and in society, I think I'm showing up even better for the work and the legacy that I want to leave.
And even when you talk about disrupting self, just the word disruption, I think people think that, okay, I'm going to be disruptive. And that means I have to like quit my job and move across country or start practicing a different religion or just something like radical. And you're like, "No, okay, stop. Like you can do small changes that have big results."
Hmm. Yeah, it reminds me, it's like a domino effect, right? And it is just like one little change every single day. I think often we look at something that we want to change as a big mountain versus it might just be a little speed bump. Or, they say, as we've been talking about what's happening in the context of the world, right, that democracy isn't dying because of one big blow. It's like little small paper cuts. On the other side, if we look at how we're going to do more good in the world, it takes all of us bit by bit trying to be better every single day. And I think it makes our goals and our desires and who we want to be to more attainable. I think about it when working out. I like to take care of myself, but I used to be the person that was training for half marathons. And even if my hip and my knee are all messed up, jacked up from years of that, but I would push myself. And then now I'm in a place of like, if you get 15 minutes of a walk in today, or maybe just like 15 minutes of meditation or something today, you've done a lot, right? Like it doesn't have to be such an enormous undertaking. And so once we get comfortable doing that with ourselves, we can get comfortable doing that in the world around us. And then you may not feel as though you have to quit your job to become, an elected member of Congress, which I think there needs to be more public servants like teachers that go into Congress, but I don't think people just need to like think of that as the first step to doing more good in the world. Or it doesn't mean that, just because this relationship isn't working today, that I have to completely get rid of all these people in my life, relationship, romantic or friendship, but maybe it's just like some small adjustments and some small changes that we can do every single day that eventually add up.
One of the other things that I loved is you talked about there's an idea that like if you have fear, that it means maybe you shouldn't do something. Like fear means stop. And it's like, no, 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 no. Like you can still do the thing that you're afraid of doing and do it scared.
Yeah, I started to dance with fear a little bit differently, right? As a person of faith, I have been told that I have not been given the spirit of fear, right? I should be able to boldly walk into things. And so I really thought about what that word means or how we engage with it. And a lot of times people say they want to be fearless, they want to be brave, right? Remove fear from their spirit. But sometimes I don't think that fear actually goes away. And what really stuck out to me over just that thinking through what fear looks like is how courage is talked about in the Bible and what it means to be courageous. And that means that it's not in the absence of fear, but it is telling you that there's something greater than my fear for me to move forward. But I've also realized too, especially as a Virgo 4 times over who overthinks and overplans. I'm also OCD. I'm an only child. So, girl, I am constantly thinking of 10 scenarios that will happen, that could happen. But sometimes those would handicap me to the point where I would just not move forward. And then when I push forward and work through those, I actually found that there was potentially something positive on the other side. And so now I look at fear as an indicator of this is unknown, but that doesn't mean the unknown isn't actually helpful for me. And I have to have the courage to walk into some uncomfortable territory. And I'm very intentional about saying unknown and uncomfortable because so often we look at fear as meaning unsafe, but most of the time it's just uncomfortable. And discomfort isn't really doesn't mean that you're not safe. It just means you're not used to it. It's new territory. And there's so much beauty on the other side of that. And even if it doesn't work out, you've gotten a lot more courage and confidence to actually go after things because you tried something.
Something else that you say in the book too is I'm going to butcher the quote, but it's the idea that you decide to be a disruptor and you could try something new and you could fail at it, but it doesn't mean you stop. Like you fall down, but you also get back up. And that's part of the process of disruption and growth.
Well, look, what's that analogy? You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take,
I say that all the time.
right? And like, I used to hate that analogy when I was younger. I'm like, it's so cliche, but like, it's so true. And I had to remind myself of that. And if I look at someone, I make a few Kobe comparisons in the book. He didn't make all of his shots. In order for him to get to how amazing he was, he definitely had some times where he failed, but he kept getting back up. And if some of our greatest talents can do that, if they can fail and try in public, why can't we do the same thing? I mean, I look at Beyonce, I do have a chapter in there about trailblazers where I kind of dissect Cowboy Carter and Beyonce. And if you think about, I'm sure you know this, Demetria, because we're a bit older than folks who are just engaging this new era of solo Beyonce, but she tried a lot in public, and a lot of times people were kind of looking at her like, "What are you doing?" But she kept trying, right? She kept figuring it out in public and failing and trying over and over. And I think that's what we have to get comfortable with. I'm an entrepreneur and I've been working for myself for 5 years now, which I know on one hand, that is a huge success because a lot of Black women owned businesses don't get that far. And on the other hand, getting to 5 years took a lot of pivots, took some financial risks,
Girl.
listen, it took a lot. Also, being comfortable with knowing that there are people who don't understand, people who will question. But the other thing that I also remind myself of, and I reference this in the book, and one of my girlfriends was like, I can't believe you put this in the book, but Flava Flav sang the national anthem at an NBA game, a Milwaukee Bucks game. And I was not mad at it because I was like, look, all of us criticizing him are sitting in the stands. Like, he had the courage to try. And so I look at it like that. At least I have the courage to try while everyone else only has the ability to critique from the sidelines.
You put a lot of yourself in this book, like, even as your friend, like, I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, that's interesting." And then there's one part people figured out when they read it. I had to skip over it. I couldn't read it just because 'cause I'm, like, too close to you.
Uh huh.
But you put so much of yourself in this book. Like, it's part self-help and personal development, but also parts of it read very memoir. You're very like, if I'm going to tell you the changes that you might want to make, these are the ways that you can be a disruptor. You lay it really bare on like, here are my flaws and here are the things that I had to work through. And I was like, some of this I would have only told to my therapist.
The funny thing is, my editor, and thank you for acknowledging that, my editor, she said, when I gave her the outline and the proposal and all of that, she's like, this is amazing, this is wonderful, but you are not a psychiatrist or a social worker, so you have to draw, your expertise comes from your personal experience. I said, wait, what, girl? I'm a Virgo. We don't,
Mm.
excuse me, we keep it all together. But I also realized that a lot of the things I'd been going through in general in life, but especially as I really faced myself, becoming an entrepreneur kind of put me in that place. I had a lot of extra time and I, was really into my creativity and what did I need to do in order to make sure that my creativity wasn't blocked. And I also was reassessing romantic relationships because at one point I was like, wait a minute, I keep dating the same guy, but none of them know each other. Like, what is happening here? Because I am the common denominator. I was thinking through friendships. I was just thinking through my relationships and family and so many different things. And I knew that I had to be very honest about these things in ways that aren't as descriptive. So hopefully nobody picks up on who I'm talking about. But I wanted to be honest. And I also think about a conversation I had with a girlfriend who said, Alencia, on like the outside looking in, you're like Black girl goals, but you're sitting over here saying, I'm tired of achieving. I need to work on X, Y, and Z in my personal life because like I don't need to just be booked and busy and in my professional bag all the time. And she was like, you opening up like that will give permission to other women, especially Black women, to open up like that as well. And so part of it was my own healing and therapy, and then also knowing that I'm creating a permission structure for so many others. Girl, I was reading my audiobook the other week. I did my book recording. And I was even surprised too about all the things I disclosed. I was like, oh my God, girl, what? You put all this in here? Oh my God.
You did. But I'll tell you this. There was nothing that I read that I was like, I can't relate. I don't know what that is. I've never experienced that. Like if I may be in it, I may be on the other side of it. I may have only had glimpses of it, but like I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still a little more guarded about certain things currently, but there was nothing that was there that I was like, "Oh, this I don't get it." Like, no, everything was very, very relatable, and I thank you for sharing. That's actually one of your own action steps, like disruptor of community. Like one of the things that you advocate is to tell your story because it helps other people.
It is a powerful tool that is free, right? And storytelling, I've always understood in the context of advocacy spaces at Planned Parenthood, did a lot of, this is how we met, right? We did a lot of work with the entertainment industry just to diversify the stories that were being told. And we know what that does, on a massive scale culturally. But I also started to realize what individual storytelling does as well. And I think you were alluding to this, and I don't mind saying on your podcast, but I talked about how when I disclosed my own story as a survivor of sexual assault, what that did for me and my family, like my immediate family, and the height of me working in the women's movement when the Me Too movement was taking off, right? And how the individual storytelling had shifted so much perspective. Because what I realize, and I say this all the time and I remind myself, it's so easy for me to organize and talk to hundreds of people, thousands of people about an issue. But one of the hardest things to do is to really challenge your family and your loved ones. I think people realize that during political cycles, election cycles. Um, but having those conversations and like pushing and challenging your family's perspectives on things can be really challenging. And so for me, it was really empowering. And to be honest, Demetria, I think disclosing that in the book in the context of, again, me telling my story to one or two people, but hundreds of thousands of us telling our stories to one or two people has this massive shift. I actually ended up disclosing that I'm a survivor on national, international television during the height of the election. And I don't think I would have been able to find that courage had I not understood the power of storytelling, the power of my own story, my voice, and what it meant for me to do that in certain spaces. And then I also think about, as I was writing that chapter, I thought about when I was in college, high school and college, I was a cheerleader, competitive cheerleader, high school and college. And I had a lot of friends who are queer. And I grew up in a very Christian household, and society was a little bit different back then, even in quote unquote progressive Christian households, right? When it comes to same sex marriage and same sex relationships. But my friends disclosing their own or sharing, and as our friend David would say, inviting me into their experience really made me understand the power of storytelling. And I had someone say to me one time that they had a family member who identified and cared more about a queer character on their favorite TV show, but yet they couldn't accept them as a queer person in their family, right? And it just really made me understand how storytelling works at this macro level and the micro level, and the power in those stories and how people can shift perspectives, and the courage, honestly, the courage that it takes.
Definitely the courage. That's another one, like do it scared, you know?
Sometimes we let, again, like what we were talking about earlier, the fear hinder us from moving forward. But there's that chapter of Ready is a Choice that talks about this. One of my favorite Peloton instructors, Jess Sims, she's always like, ready is a choice, not a feeling. Because if we sat here and said, I'm only going to do this when I feel ready, we will never feel ready. There's going to always be something else we wish we could work on, whether it's we don't look ready, we don't have enough knowledge. But the reality is, there's so many people, the most courageous people and successful people that I know are people who are like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea if this is going to work out, but I'm going to continue to move forward. And, I think we often say that's like it's what these unqualified white men do all the time. I've been around enough of them to know they don't know anything. And so I can't sit here and hold myself back when there's a whole world full of people messing up the world because they're moving forward without knowing what they're doing.
Yeah.
I better believe that when women, when Black folks, people of color, when we move forward, we actually end up knowing exactly what we're doing. And then again, it just builds that courage and that confidence to keep going.
Yes, I love that. I just did this interview about the 500th episode of this podcast, and that's how the whole thing started. Like 6 years ago, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll try it out for 90 days, and like let's see where it takes us. Let's see what happens. And then here we are, all these years later.
Look at this. Like, I mean, international podcast, right? That is really shifting people's perspectives and understanding culture in the way it does. Look at you, 6 years in.
6 years. It's supposed to be 90 days. Oh, one of the things that I like about you talking about being a disruptor in your community is, and we kind of hinted at this at the top of the conversation, is you're like, you don't have to organize like the March on Washington, right? Like you don't have to become a Black Panther. Like you can change your community in very simple ways. It can be speaking up about something at your job. It can be organizing a small event in your community. My big takeaway from this book is you can do something small and have maximum impact.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think about often we think about the civil rights movement and we hear maybe 5 or 6 names, but it took hundreds of thousands of people doing so many different things, whether they were at the March on Washington. But in order for all those people to get to the March on Washington, there took people in other positions to make sure things were taken care of. And that's what I want people to know. Like right now, as people are calling their members of Congress and telling them how to vote, you have congressional offices saying that they've had to bring in extra people to help the influx of calls because people are making their voices heard. It's something as little as donating to an organization that you care about. It's something even as small as you get invited to a meeting or a conversation about a certain issue and you saying, hey, we should have these two people also join and contribute to this conversation, the decision making. Those small things just continue to add up. And if we had 10 people all operating that way, imagine how many people we can impact. And you're also influencing and inspiring other people as well. I also think about, when people feel, and this is what capitalism does to us, we feel as though if we don't have the money or the position that we can't change anything. I talk about a little bit how labor movements have been started because workers have unionized, and people who unionize tend to be the ones who are underpaid, under-resourced, are not in top positions. But unions can bring these big companies down to their knees, right? And that is because workers have talked to one another and they have linked arms and they said, you know what, we're going to do this together. And there's strength in numbers. And that is, to be honest, money can't buy strength in numbers, right? Position can't buy the strength in numbers. And for us to do small little things every single day, it all ends up adding up.
I think it's interesting right now. I think for certain stores, like Target, for instance, they were the most recent big box to announce that they were removing their DEI program and their stocks have plummeted
Mm-hmm.
because their small action is not shopping at Target the same way.
That's right. I mean, and that is also I'm so glad you brought that up. Where we are spending our money, the trillions of dollars that all of us who are not straight white rich men, which is majority of the country, when we make sure that our dollars are attached to values, companies have to pay attention. To be honest, I think it's part of the reason that a lot of companies actually did do some investment in Black communities and women-owned businesses and all of us who make up DEI, which is a whole list. It's not just Black, even though we know that's what they mean when they say DEI. All of that is the reason in which people pay attention to us. And now, since you're so scared politically, we're saying, hey, we're going to hold back our dollars. It is going to have an impact. And I've seen some folks talking about online. They know some people who work at Target and they're saying you can actually feel it. People are not in these stores. And it's interesting because Target, I saw this video on Threads, I believe. This Black woman was explaining why Target hurt so much because Target was more aspirational. There was a certain segment of Black population who loved Target, right? Like we had a lot more disposable income, and we could leisurely walk through Target and always spend $150 every single time we're there, right? Like it wasn't necessarily that it was a place we went to where we actually need anything in Target. Everything in Target we can get in other places. And we have the choices to do that. But now you have taken away some place that has we identify with and where we have maybe climbed to socioeconomically, and what are you saying to us to basically discard our interests and our values. And so it was really interesting, and also really like convicted me too, because I was paying attention to all the conversations around Target. And I said, you're
Mhm.
right. Like Target was more aspirational because Target's more expensive than all these other big box stores, right?
Yeah. Target and Walmart have lots of overlapping things, but Walmart is not at all aspirational.
Exactly. It's non-aspirational. And we also know how Walmart is. We know what the Walton family, what they think about us, and I hate how they exploit Black workers and these certain rural communities. But Target played on the fact that a lot of us had reached a certain level of success. And also, it was the space that, again, it's this aspirational space, so it actually hurt even more, but it also required us to get more uncomfortable and step away from a place that we I would frequent after church all the time. I will say, with the caveat of listening to the Black business owners, but especially the Black women business owners that have partnerships with Target, ensuring that we support them is still extremely important. And I've been navigating and how to do that while also telling Target this was the wrong move.
Like, I wanna support all the Black people, the Black women especially, but all the Black people in Target. But, like,
Hmm.
I also haven't stepped foot in a Target, and Target was, like, my leisurely, like, there's one up the street, if I go, like, somewhere over there, get, like, my nails done
Girl.
across the street, and while I'm over here, I might as well just go in Target and, get something.
Get something, right? We'll walk in Target I would sometimes go in Target. I'm like, oh, I need these eggs. Walk out with Lord knows what.
Like $100 worth of stuff. I'm just gonna, I don't know, get some lotion, get some
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Bronner's, like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Another question for you. 92% is branded as this group of Black women who are just like, we tried to tell y'all. We voted for Kamala, like y'all chose not to, and now we're all in this mess, and we are not coming to fix it. And I keep using this line, and I really wish I knew who to attribute it to. We're taking off our capes, we're turning it into a blanket, and we're going to lay down. Y'all figure out everything else.
I love that analogy. Look,
It's so great. I wish I knew who said it.
it is so great. It is how everyone collectively felt. And I always use that past tense because I don't think everybody still feels that way. So it's interesting because every time everything explodes and goes wayward, folks always run to Black women to save. Like the amount of times people are like, oh, Michelle Obama run for president. I'm like, absolutely not. Do not ask that woman to do any more labor. She was first lady. Like we good.
And it's vocal that she didn't like it.
And did not like it. So she has done enough. But also, what kind of society do we live in that people always turn to Black women to save everyone, but nobody appreciates us, right? I do actually appreciate the response, and I'm part of the response of like, get somebody else to do it. But I am not of the response that I am no longer going to be engaged, because we do know the solutions. And even beyond that, if I am not engaged, people in my community will suffer. Bare minimum, I have a responsibility to my community to make sure that they do not suffer. The amount of people that look to me for guidance or whatever it may be, I have a responsibility to us. And I think we have to dance with this. I'm checking out a little bit differently. I started the book, there's a preface that I wrote right after the election, and I quoted Alice Walker, and she's talking about how, when you're constantly facing oppression, you have to keep a healthy soul. And so it is actually important for us to step out and disrupt self to also disrupt vision. I have a whole chapter on goodbye, booked and busy, and rest and less is actually doing more. Like that is actually the resistance for us to find our rest, for us to find that joy, for us to say no to the pressure that capitalism has put on us to overachieve. That is actually disrupting a system that doesn't work for us. But once we have filled up our cup, now I'm using another analogy everyone uses, but once we've filled up our cup, that excess does have to go somewhere. And I do think we have to tap back in. But let's actually tap back in a way that makes more sense for us and in strategies that look better for us. I don't know if I got another women's march in me. But what I do have is the ability to organize other Black women of like, okay, how are we going to hold this elected official accountable? How am I actually going to go back and educate people who don't understand the political process in the way that I do? Because sometimes I think a lot of us sometimes don't realize how much of a privilege it is for us to understand how politics work at the state, local, and federal level. And so, all right, let me stand in the gap and be schoolhouse rock for my people, because if I can influence 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Black folks to vote in the next local election, I live in Virginia, the gubernatorial race this year, that could actually significantly improve my outcomes. And so I just think that us as Black women, take your break, go on your vacation, secure your bag, because right now is actually time for us to make sure our finances are in order, but then actually figure out a way to show up that really helps our community. And the key piece of that is to build a stronger community. And to build a better community, we do have to treat each other better. So I do believe it's, yes, let's rest. And also we got to get up the next day and keep pushing forward, because also our ancestors, that's literally what our ancestors did as well.
I've been struggling with like I know I need to lay down and I know I should lay down because I'm like, you're not appreciated, you're overlooked, you run for everyone else, people don't run for you. And I'm speaking overall. But then also like, the world is on fire. And I'm like, okay, like, am I just going to just literally watch it burn? Like the meme that was circulating everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm very in conflict about that.
But that conflict's okay, though, right, Demetria? Like, honestly, I had to get okay with the non-absolute, right? The like in between. I'm like, oh, is the answer yes or no? And then God's like, nah, the answer is or. You just got to sit in it. And there have been times, Demetria, where I have been like on a deadline or felt like I needed to do 10,000 things. And I've literally had to sit down and say, you know what? I need to go get an extra hour of sleep tonight. And then maybe tomorrow I can start on that to-do list and cut it in half. And like, what is most important? Me actually taking care of myself. I quoted, Audre Lorde's famous quote that we all know of, self-care is not self-indulgence, but it's an act of political warfare. Well, she said that when I think she was dealing with cancer. And if I think about so many of our Black leaders that we know their names, a lot of them died young,
Yeah.
right? Some of the unspoken lesson in that is we do have to actually take care of ourselves. And it is actually okay if you maybe checked out a few months, right? In order to take care of yourself so you can come back stronger, because this is a marathon, not a sprint. As much as we want to get to a fully liberated society in the days that we have here on this earth, it's actually not going to be the case. There's going to always be something that we're fighting for. And so if you need to tap out to take care of yourself for a little bit, great. But don't tap out permanently. Tap out a little bit and then tap right on back in. And I also tell people right now, I know I'm being long-winded, but the last thing I'll say in this is we don't have to react to everything right now. It's actually going to take a little bit of time for us to figure out what resistance strategy is going to work. And so while some of folks are figuring that out, the soldiers we need in this movement, get your rest, get healthy, do what you need to do so that when it is time to go, you're like, I'm ready, say when.
One thing that's like really standing out to me, because before we started recording, we were talking about like the King Book and the civil rights movement and the organizers. None of that just happened immediately. The Montgomery bus boycott was thought out. It was strategized. Like it was planned. It wasn't just like a thing happened and then everyone
Mm-hmm.
just react. It is okay to like take a beat, even though it just seems so crazy. It's like we should be doing something, but something that makes sense, something that is organized, something that has an impact
Yeah,
makes a lot more sense than just doing something willy-nilly
that's
and being
right.
like, girl, what?
Well, I mean, to the point of like willy nilly, I'm gonna be very honest. We were talking about Target. The conversation that I've been seeing online, I'm like, wait a minute. How did this corporation making a statement turn all of us as Black folks against each other? What is this conversation we're having? Because we're having this reactionary response to it versus taking a beat, looking at who the real enemy is. Because at the end of the day, even though I forgot who, somebody posted this one time of like, look, I love Black people, but I don't like every single one of y'all. That's the reality. We ain't gotta like each other. Like, that's like a family, but I love Black people. I don't want to be fighting with Black people when we got oligarchs taking over our federal government and actually other countries' governments too, right? Like, I got to be very clear on who the enemy is. And so sometimes taking a beat allows for us to not respond to everything. Our girl Brittany posted one time, she was like, I'm gonna give the Black mama advice. You ain't got to respond to everything. You can get to that place when we're taking a little bit of a beat. And then, people are always evoking the Montgomery bus boycott. We're not talking about how they took, to your point, the months and months and years of planning to reduce harm to people who will be impacted, whether people were walking to work, whether people were going to have to think about shifting their wages. Like, we had to have a plan to reduce harm. Yes, people are going to be uncomfortable and have to give up certain things, but we still have to do that with like harm reduction as a priority too.
Yes, 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 all of that. Yes. You say it in the book. If you have a purpose, like you can try to run from it, but like sort of chases you down. Like your purpose is going to find you. It's going to make you, move. It's just how much you fight it or not. Can you offer, I don't know, 3 pieces of advice to someone who is kind of on the verge? Like they know they need to be doing something, but they're not really sure what to do. I mean, pick up this book, 1, and then what after that?
Yes, pick up the book. First thing I would say is, 1, figure out a spiritual practice. So I know not everybody's a Christian, and the book isn't, you don't have to be a Christian for the book, but whether you are a person of faith, a prayer practice, or a meditation practice that requires you to get into stillness and get you into a place of like hearing what your soul is trying to tell you. Once you've figured that out or gotten into that practice, I also will tell people to find something to do that embraces fun and creativity. So there's this chapter about getting back to your childhood. I talk about going to improv, because what I found is the less you are sitting here like, I have to figure this out, I have to figure this out, versus getting out of your soul the things that are blocking you from hearing it, the more you get closer to what it is that you're supposed to do. So those would be 2 things. And then the third thing is, figure out what it is, regardless of what people are saying around you, that you should be doing. People tell me I should be doing a whole lot of things, but it's not
Mm.
necessarily what I want to do. And it's not necessarily the thing that I ask myself this question all the time. What would you be doing if money wasn't a factor? What is the one thing that you would be doing that would bring you joy, no matter how much it would pay you or the achievements? And I feel like that is very much connected to the purpose and the role that you have in society, because then you'll say that's where you feel comfortable and you can develop that skill. And so those are the 3 things. And I know they're not like this big, like, oh, go take this course, but it really is about reducing the noise and getting into a space of, this is what I am compelled to do and I know I'm good at, regardless of what everyone else says around me. And if I stay laser focused in that, it will eventually come to light and be the thing that actually, I think, like light does, ignites other people to also be in their purpose.
I love that your tips are not like super convoluted. They're not super hard. There are things that I think everyone can do. Like everyone can be a disruptor, and with a dedication that's important to a few like more or less simple steps, like you can make big change.
That's right. You can. And I don't want it to feel hard. It will feel uncomfortable. Let me tell you, disrupting yourself,
Hmm.
whew, I was like, oh, girl, this is hard. But we can do hard things. And it's hard, but it's so, so worth it. It's so worth it. And disrupting yourself, and actually the things I talk about for the most part don't require money, right? Like, it really requires sitting with yourself, and it requires being honest with yourself and people around you and community.
Simple, not easy, and cheap.
And
Excellent.
cheap. There it is.
Where can people who are listening to this podcast, where can they find you and where can they find your book?
You can go to my website, flipthetablesbook.com. It will take you to a landing page where you can pre-order the book. And then you can find me at Alencia Johnson on all social. And that's also my website too.
Wait, when does your book actually come out? It's March.
It comes out Tuesday, March 11th, just in time for Women's History Month, because there's also some stories about some pretty dope, phenomenal women that I've encountered.
famous women, but also like you often mention your grandmother and your, what is it, elementary school principal.
I do, who had like such an impact on me.
I'm excited. I can't
Thank
wait.
you.
I've read like it, but I need to go back. I say this all the time. I get galleys and I read them on the PDF, but I was like, I need an actual like book. I like to scribble in margins.
Mm.
So like your book is reduced to a series of like me scribbling in my journal.
No.
It is
Well, I
good.
love that. Thank you. You're receiving it.
I am. Some of it, I was like, okay, like I do some of this. Like I actually was more disruptive than I thought.
Well, I mean, you have moved to a whole nother continent,
That part.
Demetria, right? So, like, of course you are a disruptor.
I never thought of myself as a disruptor. So I was like reading your book and I was like, oh, I do disrupt.
But to be honest, Demetria, I never thought of myself as a disruptor either until like a few years ago. And I was like, I'm just moving along in my purpose. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And then, but to so many people, the things that we do, just even just that step of you moving to another continent, right? Like they don't seem so big for people like us, but it really is. And you're inspiring folks. And I hope people hear this podcast and read the book and have the courage to do some of the things that we've done.
I've always thought you were a disruptor. I met you working for like Planned Parenthood, like you were giving everyone hell. And I was like, look at her go. Look at her go. Like, yeah. All right.
And I'm just like, this is a job, but thank you. I appreciate
You're
that.
very welcome.
I'm so excited about her book. If you go to flipthetablesbook.com, it will give you her tour dates. You can also pre-order the book or order it. What's today's date? March 6th. Her book comes out on March 11th. So you can probably order it to have it as soon as it comes out. So pick up a copy of Alencia's book. Turn your notifications on for Ratchet and Respectable because you're going to be looking for this podcast on Tuesday. Ain't going to be no podcast. It'll be out on Wednesday of next week. Also, just because we're doing once a week doesn't mean we won't do special episodes. We'll still have our book club. We can do additional episodes for that. And if something completely crazy happens, if another major A-list celebrity gets indicted and we have the indictment, I can upload additional episodes. Or if there's a TV show where something crazy happens and we need to speak about it like immediately, fiercely at once, we can do that. We're not bound to one episode, just only one is required. Okay? I got a lot more flexibility now. Ride out this bumpy part with me through the transition. We got shit we gonna do. All right? All right. Talk soon. Talk Wednesday. Okay. Bye.